In the gym and in the car, with our advice you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes, and talk about our sexy dates. We host events and go to clubs, but most of all we're still in love. It's getting hard for this to rhyme, just as well 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name is Mr. H.
I'm Mrs. H.
We've been running a bit late and we're sorry about that, but that doesn't matter because we're here now. We're here right now for you. Well, actually, we're here right now to have a conversation with each other that you can listen into if you're really, really lucky.
Very insightful.
Very insightful. This time, Mrs. H is taking the reins.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, which is appropriate because it started pissing it down outside.
I'm doing lots of driving now.
So if you hear lots of paper rustling in the background, lots of stuff,
not gonna rustle any
it could
paper.
all happen.
No.
It could all happen. But before we begin on
Consummate
that,
professional.
obviously, and I would not expect anything less, but before we run into that, I just want to say, right, in the swinging world,
Yeah.
in the swinging world, there's a new thing out again. There's a new season, a new series, if you will, of Open House that's come out.
Oh,
Now,
yes, there is.
we ain't not watched it yet.
No.
We're sort of saving them up to just get angry about them later.
Should we watch them?
Well, I think it's one of those things that we probably should view it and have a look at it.
Have a view on it.
Yeah, I think, we watched the first series and I think we watched the second. I wasn't particularly impressed with it.
I preferred the second one.
The second one was an improvement. But what I have noticed out there in the old swinging world is that it seems to be really heavily divided into a couple of camps. Some people thinking it's good that it's on TV and other people ready to burn it down. So we haven't watched it yet, so we haven't got a view on it. We're going to watch it when it's probably all done and caught up. We're on a TV binge of
Ted Lasso.
So there's a bit of Ted. We took our time getting to Ted Lasso.
Oh, it's so good. It's like chicken soup with the soul.
It is very uplifting, which was my suggestion. Bearing in mind, because neither one of us likes football, right?
No,
or
but it's
soccer,
not,
as you Americans might call it.
It turns out.
No, it transpires that it's the most uplifting thing that you could ever watch in your entire life.
It's relentlessly optimistic.
It is, which is fantastic. Versus your program of choice, which is Severance, which is dark and confusing and feels like it's never going to get to wherever it needs to go.
It's getting somewhere now.
However, I did watch Andor, which was dark but had hope. So that was like the middle ground, right?
You are eternally optimistic though, aren't you?
I'm an optimist prime. Yes, not a Negatron.
I am a Negatron.
I know. But
How did we ever get together?
Well, because opposites attract. I know that because Paula Abdul in A Cartoon
she
Cat
did indeed
told me this.
Sing about it.
Yeah. So what I do want to say, though, is that, I'd love to hear your views on Open House. So if you've been watching it and you've got a thought and you've enjoyed it or you hated it or you've got some concerns over some of the stuff that it's promoting, all this good kind of stuff, let us know. Reach out, send us an email, drop us a tweet, an owl, a fab message, a swing hub message.
Any owls anymore.
No, we really don't tend to get very many of those. No. But send us one of those things and we'll have a look. And when it comes to us having watched the show in, I guess it's going to be several weeks' time, then we'll look to include some of your thoughts and comments and all that sort of stuff.
Sounds very divisive at the moment.
Did I say comments? I did, didn't I?
What's that comments?
Comments. Precious and comments. Yeah, one of those.
It does sound divisive, though, from what I'm hearing. It's making me almost really wildly compelled to watch it because it sounds like a roller coaster of stuff. But at the same time, I'm already like, oh my God.
Well, I've seen comments about the fact that it's a lot of content creators, that it's a lot of hot people. So there's not much in the way of different approaches, different body types, different backgrounds, all that sort of stuff. So, in a world where EDI is being wiped out by the states, I think we're in a space where we could do even more with that. So I am curious to see what it's going to be and how it's going to come across. So if you've got opinions on it, just let us know and we'll maybe reread them out on the podcast or something.
See what we think as well.
Yeah, and if you want to send us a voice message about it, that's cool too. Do that. Yeah. Why not? And if you're not sure how to do that, get in touch and we can talk you through the process and all that sort of stuff. You can also reach us on our website. There we go. That's the thing. We've got nothing to promote at the moment, which is interesting, but we are going on an adventure somewhere.
We are going on a road trip.
Going on a road trip to seek out
a little recce
and look at some venues. Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool.
There'll be a big element of quality control. Sting.
Yes. So we are going to a location and we're doing like not a pub crawl, a sample test. Sample fest. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And we're going to go around and test loads of different places and see if any of them are suitable for
a venue.
For a venue or an event, right?
Yes.
Which is cool. So anyway, we can't talk about that yet because it's, we don't actually have a solution or an answer yet.
But it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
This weekend.
It's always coming. Let's go with it, Mrs. H, then. What is your topic today that you have chosen using the power of ChatGTP?
No, not just that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But also, I have decided I want to interview you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't know what I'm going to ask you.
The classic bed hoppers have run out of content. Let's interview each other situation. I'm down with this. Let's go with it.
Yeah, but I've got some good stuff.
Why are you speaking like Scooby-Doo or Shaggy?
Because I've been talking all day.
You ain't Scoob. All right, cool. Let's go with it.
I'm going to cover a very, very vast topic. And it's so vast that I'm going to just condense it into one section.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm looking kind of at the genesis of rules within ethical non-monogamy.
Genesis and rules.
The genesis of
Hudson
rules.
beating.
And kind of looking at like the spectrum of flexibility that sits within that.
Okay.
So lots and lots of stuff about rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose you could just basically ask, like, why do rules exist and are they made to be broken? But it's a lot more than that. So I'm going to ask you some questions and see what your take on it is.
All right.
We might not agree. We might agree. You might decide that I crossed a threshold once and that was a rule broken. Who knows?
Well,
it'll probably come up.
It only comes up every other episode. So let's see how we go and see how quickly I can bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay,
all right.
Go for it.
So we're going back to the beginning here. So when couples enter the ethical non-monogamy journey.
Yes.
Journey. Sorry, I had to say it.
When they start their adventures.
Yes. Why do you think couples feel the need initially to establish rules when they're entering that lifestyle?
Well, I think for me, the reason why we did it,
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, the sort of main conversation around it was about not breaking our own relationship. And part of our approach has been creating a sort of safety bubble, a net around ourselves that protects us from things that we think might hurt, scare, surprise, shock, and cause us to be upset with each other or even worse. So I think the reason why we set rules and boundaries was, one, because we like to enter things cautiously, not people, but enter...
Very risk averse, yeah.
Yeah, risk averse. I think because we put our relationship... Not that anyone else doesn't, but we do value our relationship a great deal. So we put in a lot of fail-safes, i.e. rules and boundaries that were designed to protect us.
Okay.
So, and I think part of those rules were because we were very new.
Yeah.
And we wanted to kind of figure out how it was all going to work and take baby steps before we jumped all the way in with different things, like a suck it and see approach in a way, but with boundaries around it. And also I think it helped particularly me because I like rules being in place. Rules are very important because they're very closely linked to fairness to me. So as much as I flex rules, and I occasionally can be known to do that.
Really?
I know, right? But I think the reason that I really appreciate them, though, is because they enable me to understand what might happen and what I might expect to see or encounter. Even if it was like, hey, we're not going to kiss people when we're both not there or something like that. It was understanding that I'm not going to turn a corner and find you making out with someone or we're all going to stay in the same room, for example, to play. It's all knowing that that's how we're sort of how I might experience that stuff. So I then therefore know that I shouldn't see that sort of thing, and therefore I can get my head around it a bit better.
So you created yourself a little framework, and indeed us a framework.
Oh yes.
To help with some of those challenges. And so flipping it to why other people might create those.
Yeah.
This was your take.
Yeah.
Do you think some people decide to create rules because they are societal norms and they're it's almost expected that you follow a tried and tested formula when you're entering the lifestyle, or because they have insecurities?
Column A, column B, I think. I think so. It depends on how you're going in and the research that you've done, if you've done any research, right? So if you listen for example, to our podcast, then you might go, what the bedhoppers have done, that sounds like my approach, therefore, or they seem like good, awesome people that I'd like to follow in the footsteps of, therefore I'll create my rules and boundaries to help helped me through this process. And likewise, we did a very similar thing, or I did a very similar thing, having read books, listened to podcasts, watched films or whatever. And I think that was really, really helpful. So there is a sort of, you see and hear these things and you adopt their approaches. But also I think, some of the rules are designed by their nature to protect you. And whether that's to protect your relationship or to protect your feelings could be debatable. Those things could be intrinsically linked, of course. And I think actually as you're, you might say, okay, I don't want to see you having, I don't know, full sex with a man or whatever, it's only blowjobs or whatever, and that's all I'm comfortable with. That it might be protecting some of the insecurities I have about what I'm about to witness.
Right. Okay.
And I think quite a lot of people, when they start, they set their rules, and those rules and boundaries change and flex as they get further into the lifestyle. It's fairly rare, I'd say, although we have met people that kind of jump in and go, right, anything goes, right? Because there is no protection for them. And then sometimes that all goes tits up and they go, okay, all right, let's take a step back. What is it that we're not comfortable with? Because they've not either talked about it fully or they just want to throw themselves at the problem. And then it all kicks off. And yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. I think that's probably why the rules are important, because they give you a framework to understanding. I think there are some norms that you're trying to follow, or there might be some learned
and maybe
norms.
Other people might look at you and say, well, if you're doing this, surely you should have some boundaries and fail-safes in place. So maybe there is an expectation placed on you from society that this is the right way to do things. Well,
interestingly, society, as in, okay, so let's use the wider term of society in terms of friends and people that we've spoken to who aren't ethically non-monogamous or aren't in the lifestyle or whatever it is that they're doing. Some of the questions that they ask imply that there are no rules and that it's all a free-for-all. And their impression of swinging as a big thing is that it's a complete and utter fuckfest where anything goes. And whilst those things exist, I don't think those things are necessarily healthy for every relationship dynamic that's out there. And for the most part, it's probably that sort of anything goes mentality can be quite damaging, because you're just jumping into all sorts of potential issues that might flare up.
Okay. Before I move on to my next little mini topic within that.
All right.
I'm interested. Do you think that when people set these rules, and yourself included, do you think that they would serve your purpose, or did you expect them to create unexpected challenges along the way?
A little column A, column B, I think. So I thought that those rules were a good starting point. So let's refresh on our rules, because I think when we started, I think we were happy to kiss people while we were in the same environment, and that we were both to be involved. It was a same room thing. We weren't a full swap couple, so it was all only with other partners. So we put some of that stuff in place just to support us and understand how it's going to feel. And part of it was designed around the very nature of these felt like huge steps for us, but though in terms of entering the lifestyle and the scope of what you could get up to, they felt very much like baby steps. So for me, they felt much more about dipping our toes in a safe way with a decent framework to support us. And then if they needed to change down the line, then we could talk about that. I don't think they felt necessarily restrictive, because we'd kind of put them there to prevent issues from arising more than to stop us from doing something that we wanted to do. And I think had we been like, oh, we feel really comfortable going straight to full swap, that might have been great for us. But I don't think that at the initial time we were ready. And I think it felt like a huge step for us to get to that point. In fact, it took us like a long time.
And how do you think other people might view newbies entering the lifestyle with this brand new set of rules that they're brandishing, and maybe your first experiences with a very experienced couple who scoff at these rules and go, these are pointless, because let me tell you, over time this will change. Do you think there's some peer pressure there?
I think there can. I think there can be. I think we certainly encountered the people that said to us, numerous, you're not swingers unless you immediately drop trowel and start fucking someone the moment you turn up to a house, and that didn't feel like the way I wanted to do this. And of course, everyone can do it in a different way. I don't know. What do you reckon? What's your take on this?
I think some people probably bulk under the pressure of feeling like they're not going to fit in with the crowd or get the hookups they want, because they're kind of like made to feel a bit silly for having some of the rules. Some of those rules, like no kissing unless it's a woman, Like those rules, and when you hear them for the first time, you think, really? How can you have sex without being intimately kissing someone? And you and I know that to us doesn't feel like a space in which you can move intimately between partners. But if that's a rule that you've actually got cast iron from a word go because you're so new and you're so worried, then who are other people to come and try and peer pressure you into breaking those rules?
And I think, you've got to play to the slowest pineapple in the room, to use a phrase. I think you kind of got to go with other and respect other people's rules. Sometimes they don't tell you all of the rules, and that can make it difficult. And sometimes you get so used to doing what you do, you assume that other people have the same rules. And quite recently, we played with someone, and I just went to kiss her. It was just a very natural, and I forget now that like a year ago or whatever, we were like, oh, we have to be around, or we're allowed to kiss whoever we want, and we're not going to cause an issue. And she was very much like, well, my partner's not in the room.
Right.
It wasn't done at all to be like sort of hidden or to be doing this on the dirty and the down low. It was just because I'm so used to having that open relationship with you that I was like, oh, it completely and utterly didn't recognize that might have been.
You.
Yeah. And I was very sorry about that, and I apologized. And I think some of those rules are absolutely there in place to protect them and to help them protect other couples. I think the no kissing at all rule is a difficult one, but I often, we find that that's more inexperienced people who haven't really done very much, if anything at all. And then as soon as they get into their journey, their adventures, or whatever you want to call it, then they go, oh, how are we supposed to move forwards without this? Now, for some people, they never change that. And that's always going to be just the way that they protect their relationship. But for the most part, most people kind of go, kissing, yeah, that's fine, that's cool. Now, whether they do that in front of the partners or not is a different story. And lots of people have different takes on the freedoms that are associated with that. I also find it interesting because we obviously, for example, we're very, very close to Secret Stag and Secret Vixen, right? Our relationship with them is a lot more open and a lot more free-flowing than it is with anybody else that we know. So, and it's kind of, you have to change a gear when you've kind of gone with a weekend or an adventure with them to when it's with other people that we perhaps don't know or aren't as open with. And that's an interesting one because you just kind of get used to that level of freedom. Like when you've been to Desire or whatever and everyone was like, hey, you can just kiss, it's fine, don't worry, just ask and it's cool. Well, not everyone's had the brief that was at the start of that and had that sort of piece and seen that in action. So they're a lot more, oh, is this how you do things now? And that's quite an interesting challenge, I think.
Okay. So moving on a little bit then around, you've got your rules. All right. In terms of how flexible those rules then become over time. So you have couples obviously who strictly adhere to them and actually keep them in place and gatekeep each other quite well.
Yeah.
And then you get those who do allow for some fluidity over time. And so what might contribute to a couple becoming more or less flexible?
I think experience helps a lot. And I think, comfort with the people that you're playing. So if you have regular play partners, I think very naturally you develop, you understand the language, you understand the rules, but you also become much more comfortable with those people. And I think as a result, you can find the discussion around flexing those rules becoming much more likely. I think also as you get more confident and comfortable with your rules in general and your approach to this, you're less scared. You're much more bold, you're much more excited about things rather than being worried about it. Because a lot of people, when they start out, they're quite nervous and worried. I know we were. And as we found our comfort and found our sort of place in the world, I think we started to flex those rules. And often it happens in one or two ways. One, it's the discussion. Should we do this? Is this cool? Oh, this is, one of us feels that it's like, oh, we're missing some opportunities to do something fun here. Or there's one of us crosses the threshold and we kind of go, did that break us? And we take it for what it's worth. It's, and for me, I struggle a little bit with the absolute rule breaking, but I'm also extremely conscious that I like working to within an inch of a rule, like bending it as much as I can.
I love it both ways.
I know, and this is the thing, but it depends on how much stock you put in that particular rule.
It does.
So I think, there's been situations where you've crossed a boundary. I've probably crossed a boundary on occasions. And I think you kind of learn from it and you kind of go, you know what, that's okay. And you have the discussion, is this something that we need to change in terms of our rules, or does that person need to reel their neck in? And it might well be like the threshold conversation. I know I've referred to it 1,000 times already today, but you played in another room, right? Across the threshold. We can argue over the semantics of it all, but that started a conversation around, well, it didn't kill us.
No.
But also it started out, well, you pushed that boundary way too early and we weren't in the right spot to do that. So, but it did start ultimately the conversation that led us to kind of going, oh, well, actually, we could play separately.
But not in a completely separate environment. We were in the same house.
Yeah, we were in the same house, but the fact that that happened and we didn't die over it meant that we were able to evaluate those things. And I think, that led on to the conversation that actually if I'm occupied and happy, then
you did look occupied.
And the same is true of yourself.
Yes,
that we're a little bit more free flowing with those types of things.
So I'm going to push you for a more specific example of a time then, where a fairly rigid rule may have become a bit more flexible, or vice versa, where a very flexible rule that you had in place actually something happened that made you want to make that rule more rigid again.
Can't think of one where it's been a more flexible one that's been made more rigid off the top of my head.
So maybe the rigid one that became more flexible.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One was around the transition towards full swapping with somebody.
Okay.
And actually that felt like a huge deal certainly to me. I know you were less, you're like, I don't want to put this cock in my mouth. I just want to sit on it. And I get...
Yes, and I still maintain that. It was more of an aesthetic sense related thing than I want to go all the way and fuck someone. It was more that I just didn't necessarily want to put every cock in my mouth.
And I get that, and we've covered that enough times. But I think that was a moment when we kind of went, okay, this rule needs some flex, and we want to try this and see how we go. And I think as ever, we kind of relaxed that for one couple, and then retreated, and then saw how it went, and then kind of talked about it and was like, hey, was that so bad? We didn't die. It's all good. Let's try that again. And then let's see how you were on the other side of the room. I was on, and it was like, do we need to be closer? And we fine tuned it like you do with anything, like a recipe, really. You make the recipe to what the book tells you. And if you kind of go, well, actually that was a bit too sweet or whatever, let's reduce this, or that was a bit too well done, let's do that. And you fine tune it to your to your relationship or your oven or whatever weird cooking analogy that I've managed to exploit today. I do think that you kind of, and the kissing one was another one, I think, where we were like, okay, right, we are kissing in different areas, and we're preventing ourselves from having fun, and we could be so much better at this. And then we sort of went, actually, shall we just say that we can make out with people and it's fine? And
I actually think that was one of the biggest examples I can think of where we had a rule, quite a long-standing rule, really. Yeah. We were very adamant that we shouldn't really lose sight of each other or go ahead and kiss someone without there being some level of acknowledgement between us that it was okay. And I think you're right. That's the rule that caused the most.
I think that's the one that we both got hung up on. I think,
we did, because it became a pissing contest, frankly.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, we still, there is an element that still exists over there.
It's more bants now.
Bants, yes, the healthiest thing in the office.
Poking gentle fun at each other rather than keeping a tally and holding each other, sort of mudslinging if one of us kisses more people than the other. And that's a bit silly, but also we do it in jest, I like to think. Maybe we did. I think, it took us a while to get into that space. And I think we're still learning. But honestly, the sort of this play session that I mentioned earlier, where I just kissed this woman, I hadn't quite, I'd kind of got so much into this space of this is okay that I almost forgot that for other people they may not be,
because and I don't mean any harm or upset or foul by it, but it was just that, oh, can I kiss you? And it was like, no, because they're in the other. Yeah. Okay, cool. Right, I get it. I hadn't considered because I'd got so comfortable in the space that I'm at.
Yeah. That's fair.
All right, go on then. What else you got?
Okay, so the old communication topic, because that has to come up in everything we do.
Yeah.
Contractually obliged.
Yes.
So how often do you think couples should revisit rules? if they have to have an arbitrary figure at all in mind? Or do you think there's challenges around not deciding to have some revisitation around them?
I think it's healthy to revisit the rules, but equally I'd say that we're terrible at doing that.
Wait till one's broken and then go, hell, we're going to sit down now.
Yeah, I think we are much more about this is our status quo, we're kind of happy and we're comfortable and we're going out, this is what we're doing. And then something will happen that will break that, or that one of us will be upset with, or something will trigger us that will then bring it up as a thing. And so I think it's really hard to sort of set a date in your diary to kind of go, right, well, let's talk about rules. But I think, are we okay? Or what else do we want to do? And yes, I get that you absolutely could focus that into like a talk about what are you fantasizing about? What would you like to explore? What would you like to do? But those conversations can be quite hard. And I think unless you're in the space where it comes up naturally, it can feel a bit forced. And as a result, I think it can be a little defensive.
Which is why I think people probably, a rule boundary gets overstepped, and then it becomes like, well, now we have to talk about it because something's happened that one of us has done that wasn't really sitting within the remit of our current rules.
And I've heard a lot of people say that you shouldn't change your rules when you're in the middle of like a play situation. Like you shouldn't like agree on the fly because it's not thought through and it's open to all sorts of problems. Yeah. And I guess it's that, what are your hard and fast rules? Like what is set in stone and what is a boundary? I.e. something that you can step over or flex with, but still should respect. And I think that's kind of how I see them. And I think really it's about kind of exploring that and having regular conversations and kind of reviewing some of your, like when you've had a night out and you've played with someone new, or you've done something, or you've had an adventure, as part of your debrief, I think there is a sensible sort of check-in about how did that go? Was it okay? And if anything flexed that, or you wanted to do more but you didn't, then's probably a good time to bring up that boundary or rule change.
That brings me into my next question very nicely.
Okay,
which
good.
Which actually was around, do you think that overly rigid rules can hinder enjoyment and spontaneity?
Well, I think, okay, so I think rules and boundaries can, so for example, right, I like chaos within a confined space. Controlled chaos. So I like to know what is the maximum amount of
chaos that you can get away with?
I can cause within the agreed boundaries. And I like the free-flowing aspect of it, but I also like knowing what the limits are so that I know where to stop. So I think it can restrict your fun by the very nature of it. Like, if your fun is that, you're not allowed to make out with anybody unless your partner's there, then
you're going to have a very boring night, aren't you, Mr. H?
Well,
Mr. Swing Pong.
Well, I think that could change your approach to the evening, or it wouldn't change because that's your agreed rules. But you could have a lot more fun if that's what you're seeking to do. But I think both of you need to be on the same page with that. But of course, some people have rules for one person and different rules for another. And
baffling.
Well, and it's not baffling. I get it. Like some guys are only comfortable with their ladies kissing other women.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that seems odd, and I struggle.
Feel you rolling your eyes.
Yeah, because it's not particularly fair. But I can get the mentality that has led to that point. I get it. So I think there is a thing in the midst of all of this that is about sort of understanding where your relationship is at and setting those things so that actually you can have fun within the boundaries that you've been given, right? But if you find that you're missing out on fun and you're going, oh man, I could have gone out and done this, and this, then that's the time to have that conversation. But it's really important to remember that you've put those boundaries and those rules in place for a reason. Now, that reason could be to make sure that you're both comfortable, that you're both safe, that you're both not going to get upset. So, or it may be just that you've done it because this is the beginning of your journey or your middle of your journey or whatever, and this is what you feel comfortable with. And what you're actually seeing is that, you'd be comfortable with all this additional stuff. Great. But don't just go and grab that additional stuff. Go and have the conversation with your partner. Probably best not to do it on the night.
Ask permission, seek forgiveness. Yeah.
Well, yeah, don't just go and do it, then seek forgiveness. That is basically a pathway to someone being upset, I think. So my take would be is that sometimes rules are going to prevent you from having fun. There's just no doubt about it, because if you are like, oh, I'd like to kiss every lady in this venue, and your rule is that you can only do it when your partner's there, you may feel like you're being held back. So it's really important that you just don't go ahead and do that and then go, oh, I'm really sorry, sweetheart, I made out with everyone, even though it was a rule that said that's not going to get you anywhere. But what you could go back is, and I would say not on the night, because it feels like you're in a pressured environment and you may make choices and decisions that aren't thought through, is to take it away and go, next time that we go to one of these things, is it okay if I do this?
Yeah. I mean, so conversely, the flip side of that is if there's a lack of very clear, explicit boundaries or rules, then that actually can cause breaches of trust, because the other person might say, well, it wasn't really that clear what you meant, and I didn't think you meant this. And this is maybe where some of the anxiety sets in and rules may get broken inadvertently.
I think this is where you need to be clear about your rules and and check your understanding of what's within the realms of acceptable or not. And I think this is where things like, what was it called, Playboy Swing, like Open House, like the films, like the podcasts, all that sort of stuff comes in really handy, because you can say, what would we have done in that situation? How would our rules apply? Because these are real world examples, to a greater or lesser extent.
Dramatized ones, but yes.
Yeah,
yes, they are.
but you can actually kind of go, well, would we have done that? Would we have, what would have happened if you'd have done this? And then you could say, well, I wouldn't have done that because these are the rules and I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff is really helpful for sort of testing the strength of your boundaries and how you feel. And also it might be useful in setting up your boundaries and rules in the first place, because if you've listened to our podcast, and thank you, gentle listener, for doing so, thanks for sticking through so much of this, you may well go, right, we're going to copy those exact rules that we had at the start, but then you know some of the problems that you may encounter later on, because you already know what we've been through and how it might evolve.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, okay.
And I was actually just musing when I was listening to you, and this wasn't one of my questions I planned to ask you, but do you sometimes maybe think the further you kind of go through the experiences in E&M, the more flexible you become and the more laid back you become sometimes of your approach, and especially when you're talking about how open you can be with well-established play partners? Do you think sometimes people may view that level of openness as too intimate, and that might be the threat that they become jealous of, because it's so explicitly open and you're like, this is fine, we said it's fine, of course it's fine because I've said it's fine, and then you see it happening with all the time because you've expressly said we're okay with it. Do you think that becomes a fast track to too much intimacy for some couples? I
think it can do. I think it's a bit like, right, when you start learning to drive a car, right? You're not confident. You don't know all the stuff. You don't know how to do it. But actually, once you pass your test, then you drive really cautiously and you try and follow the law as much as you can. Probably this is not everyone's going to follow this thing. But as you go on and as you sort of go on into your literal journey, then, and perhaps you've been driving for a few years, then you don't actually think about it. You don't really think about your driving. Your style is your driving style, and you become much more complacent. So you do go over the speed limit, you do take risks, but you feel that you're taking calculated risks because you know your car, what it's like driving, what the roads are like, what the area is like, all this kind of stuff comes into it. And I'd say that swinging is very similar. When you kind of start with your heavier set rules, and but then you could meet other drivers that are much more experienced, and they can be quite terrifying because they know what they're doing. They're confident. They can turn without stopping and juddering and having to restart the car and all that sort of stuff. So there is I'm getting away with lots of weird analogies today. I'm not sure what's going on, but I do feel it's a bit like that, and that you can see those people and you go, wow, they are so open, but also they can be intimidatingly so, as you said. I think when we started, we met people who could just, they could walk around, talk to anybody and everything, and they could pick up people like that, and they could go away and have sexy adventures without what felt like a moment's notice. And they seemed so advanced and so like they've
secure,
evolved and secure and all these kind of things. And I think, yes, there are absolutely people that are like that. But at the same point, I think it's important to realize that lots of people have their own things that they don't tell you about. So actually, when you start chatting to people, quite often they aren't the secure ones, and they do have rules, they do have things in place. It's just you don't know what they are. It's impossible to know what goes on behind closed doors.
It is.
But I do get what you mean. I think, I remember starting this and going to the odd club or something and seeing people, and it's like, wow, this feels so advanced. And even now, I kind of, with all this socials and stuff going on, I feel like people have a much better secure start to doing this. And there's so many confident people that just jump in, probably because there's loads of resources and lots more information.
I like to think that's one of the reasons. Yeah. I think there's way more education to be had. A lot of responses that, people elicit aren't codified. They're just natural reactions to how they see their peers acting and how society acts around them, and things like that. So I think you're right. I think resource-wise, it's a huge pool of resource out there now which people can dip into, hopefully, and use.
Yeah, I mean, like this one. We changed the scape of the landscape with this, definitely.
Okay, so I've got a question. Now, let's assume you've got your rules, talked about the flexibility that exists within those.
Yeah.
Talked about how important it is to communicate and revisit your rules.
Yeah.
What happens if one gets broken?
Divorce.
Well, there you go.
Immediate divorce.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, I think it depends on the severity and what's happened, right?
Of course, it's not. There's shades of grey within all of this, but
I mean, if one of your rules is do not develop a relationship with somebody else, and you go and do that,
probably a big one.
It's quite.
Yeah, that's quite big. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't fall in love with someone else unless that's your thing. But I do think it's difficult because you've got to look at the severity of the rule that's been broken.
Yeah.
The situation in which that happened. Yeah. You've also got to understand that the way in which that person has gone about it, their mental state, but also the person that hasn't broken the rule, and how they found out about it. So there's one thing to go, oh, I kissed someone and I was around the corner and it just so happened, and I'm really sorry, to come back to someone.
I tripped. Fell over a drink and then locked lips.
Locked lips, yeah. But if the difference is if you confess that the minute afterwards, or someone came around and said, "Oh, I've just seen your husband making out with another woman around the corner," and you're like, "That motherfucker, that's one of our rules that he's broken." That's a different situation.
It depends how it emerges then.
How it emerges, the severity of it, because that may well be like a real no-no for you. That might be like a, no worries. So it's like, and you may be in a space where your journey has evolved to the point where, whilst it's still a rule, you're a lot more comfortable with things and you just haven't sat down and kind of gone through it. So
talk me through some steps then you might take once you establish this rule has been broken. So
I think that the best thing to do is obviously conversation and communication and working through it. Now, it may not be the best thing to do it on the night.
So have a nice heated debate.
Nice yelling, slagging match.
Especially when you've had a few drinks.
Yeah, so I think quite often it's best it depends on how you handle things, right? But for me, I think it's best to take yourself away from the situation. Now, we're not great at doing this because we want to resolve everything straight away.
We do.
We will.
Don't like to go into bed on an argument.
No, I know, which means that we'll take everyone down with us by yelling at each other, which is not the best way to do things.
No,
I think ideally you want to take yourself away from the situation, even if that's outside, to a different room. Even if you lock yourself in a playroom for a couple of minutes, it's not the end of the world, and just have a little bit of a discussion about it. Now, maybe, like you say, if you've been drinking, that your best bet is to wait until you're both not drunk and you can talk through it sensibly. It does make perfect sense.
In hindsight.
Really fucking hard to execute when you've had a few drinks and one of you's ragingly upset. The other one's like, what the fuck have I done? I didn't do anything wrong. It was just a kiss or whatever. Doesn't help at all. This sounds like I'm talking from experience. Really not, as far as I remember.
Have we ever broken a rule?
Yes.
What did we do?
Lots of times.
Lots of times?
Lots of times. We continuously break rules.
Oh, it is in the theme song, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, things happen when we make mistakes. So I think there's been times when, certainly the early days, there were moments when I was trying to indicate to you that that we should have stopped or we should have got out there, and you carried on.
Right.
I think there's been the crossing of the threshold, officially titled.
Yeah, these are all things that I've done wrong.
Yeah, I don't.
What about you?
I don't remember anything that I've done wrong, but I probably have.
How is that halo so tight?
Well, it's now cock ring, you see, that's why.
Yeah.
I
You never done anything?
Probably. I can't remember what, though.
slender grasp of time, Mr. H over there.
Oh, okay, all right. So
Okay, all right.
So yes, so my grasp of time and awareness of you, but that wasn't necessarily a rule. That was just
Courtesy.
courtesy.
Yeah,
That was behaviour. Rather
being
than,
nice to the person that you're betrothed to.
yes, that wasn't
Maybe
in the rules.
that's an unspoken rule.
No, it wasn't written down, so it doesn't count.
So it's okay to have like, I don't know, 5 hours of sex with someone and just like fuck off into the night.
I didn't fuck off into the night. That's the thing. Anyways, so what I would say is that we've both flexed and bent and broken boundaries and rules throughout the course of time. We've kissed people when we were like, oh, we're not going to kiss people. When we said blah, 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 blah. And we've done that. And none of us has kind of gone out and played with someone else or anything like that without any.
No, we've never done anything like that. No.
And I think we'd probably sit down and talk that through. But I think given the fact that broadly, if one of us wants to do something and we ask about it, we can normally work out a way to do it, or at least a means of something similar to enable us to kind of both feel comfortable about it. But we tended, the problem is that when you're in the heat of the moment and one of us, the person who hasn't broken the rule doesn't feel supported or listened to, that is not a good space to have that conversation. And I know that with us, so I tend to get emotional and you tend to get really angry.
I believe belligerent.
Belligerent is the word. And I don't think that's the perfect combo when we're trying to resolve that.
No,
so
not.
After a number of drinks, it is not our best means of sorting shit out. What we should do is kind of go, that's okay, that's fine, we'll sort this out later, because there's never been any major offences, but we're just not that great at doing that, because I still, to this day, and I quote this a lot, I still regret lending someone a Transformer when I was 4.
I mean, it's probably worth thousands now.
That's probably
I
no.
regret you lending it to them as well.
Well, I scratched like some fake windscreen reflections onto the windscreen of the Transformer. It looked cool.
You did what?
Yeah, it looked cool. I did it with compass.
Hang on, so you owned this Transformer?
I owned this Transformer, loaned it to a friend, to what I thought was a friend. Modified it with a
scratch.
lens scratch, which looked awesome. And then he said, oh, no, you didn't lend it to me, trying to gaslight me. And then when I went to his house like months later, there it fucking was.
And you knew it was yours because of the scratches.
Because of the scratch.
The custom scratches.
Yeah, so I took it back. I was like, motherfucker,
You took it back?
I took it back, yeah. This
Did
is
you
mine.
actually?
I fucking did. Damn straight.
You told him you were taking it?
No, I just took it. I was like, fuck you.
Oh, so you stole your own Transformer back.
How can I steal it?
Because you didn't tell me you were taking it.
Yes, but it was mine.
He might have been really impressed by your modification and fashioned his own.
Anyway, the point is... is that my ability to hang on to things and reflect endlessly on them and be emotionally damaged by something stupid is endless.
Yeah.
And you're much more disposable with your thoughts on things. You kind of process it and move on.
I don't want to live in the past.
But the difference is when it has been rule breaking, for the most part, it tends to be you rather than me.
My God, what?
It's true.
I am shooketh.
I know.
I don't believe this.
Well, gentle listeners, what you'll come to realise is that Mrs. H is actually a cad.
I don't even have words.
I know you don't. I love how shocked
I'm not even that stealthy.
I know. That's the thing. That's why we find out all the time.
I'm not conniving in the slightest. I couldn't lie my way out of a packet of quavers. I just don't have it in me.
But I think this is one of the things.
Inherently stupid sometimes, yes.
No, not at all. I think one of the things that it's really important to recognise is that breaking rules can be done like within the moment. Like you might accidentally, or you might not think, and you've not done it maliciously.
No, of course not.
It's possible that you have done it on purpose. You've sought it out.
Unless
you've planned
it's
premeditated it. You've done it maliciously. You've done it to get back or to hurt someone, or you've done it because you've not given a fuck about the rules. And that's a very different situation to be in. Yeah. Making a mistake is one thing, and owning that mistake is really important. But if you've gone out the way to deliberately harm, hurt, or hinder someone, then actually that's a very different conversation. And much of what we talked about are things where people have made a mistake and they've just happened to be in a space, or they've not thought, or they've been careless. That's very different to kind of going, right, I'm going to go fuck that person. and my partner's not going to...
To hell with my rules.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really important to recognise that, and your approach for that sort of situation is going to probably require a lot more Band-Aid and a lot more conversation, a lot more soothing over to or if you can get back from those things. Because if you've done something so maliciously to hurt or upset your partner, you've really shown that you don't care about their feelings, And that's a massive slap to the face, frankly.
Do you think if rules are broken, maybe not once, but a couple of times, or a rule is overstepped so much that you feel really hurt by that, do you think the couple should take themselves out of a lifestyle, or is there a way forward where they can continue?
I think, again, it depends on if that person is continuously breaking a rule. You need to look at, is the rule worth having? Is it a rule that you both agree on, or is it that one of you wants to do something and the other one of you doesn't? And if you can't come to an agreement about how to deal with that, then maybe you do need to take a step back and work on yourselves and just figure out what you're going to do. And if it's an absolute no-win situation and you can't come to any compromise, then it's forever going to be a problem for you both. So this is about compromise. This is about agreeing, and this is about finding a solution. But if, for example, right, if you didn't want me to kiss people when you weren't around, right, and I continued to do that, regardless of what you said and how upset you got, so you come to me and you find out and you're crying and you're really upset, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to keep doing that, and you don't want to change that, you're still upset by it, then we've got to figure our shit out. We've either got to take a step away from the lifestyle, or we've got to come to a compromise where you are happy and I'm happy, or, we're both unhappy, because sometimes that's what compromise is, right? But I do think there is something around that of understanding your partner's feelings and understanding the pain and the hurt that you've caused by breaking those rules. And if you can't get to that stage, then you really need to have a good conversation about your relationship. Okay. I know that sounds kind of final. It doesn't have to be final. It could just be that you go, right, well, doing this in this way is not for us. And it may well be that you're better off doing something that's where it's like a hot wife or a hot husband situation, where you don't have to see what your partner's doing. Or it might be that you kind of go, okay, one of you is going to be in the lifestyle and the other one's not, and that's fine. But you do need to be in agreement with whatever your solution is. Otherwise, it's only going to come back and keep hurting you.
So, all right, applying all these topics that we talked about to our own fairly shifting dynamic at the moment, where we've entered into solo play. Yeah. Not a lot, but we are going into that sometimes. Do you think our set of boundaries, because I say boundaries because we don't really have any major rules, do you think we need to revisit our boundaries and make sure they're fit for purpose with this new dynamic? Or do you think people should have a different kind of way of looking at things like that?
I think we probably need to have a conversation about where we're at with things to make sure that we're both happy. I think there are bits, for example, right, having different chat groups.
Yeah, because this is always a rule that we've had around. We don't really want to create little separate pools of intimacy that we're not able to be part of, because that's where you don't know, you get worried about, right?
I utterly get that. But I also think it's a bit strange and a bit weird going on a solo date with someone and not being able to have a little bit of a conversation with them. And we haven't quite navigated this yet in terms of how we figure it out, because I think it's a strange one, right? For example, you're going away. Yeah. And you have a conversation or a text with the person that you're going away with for that weekend. Okay. Do you not?
Well, I do, but actually I haven't got any conversation going about it.
But you have
I tend to have that conversation in our group chat with you.
Okay.
And that's genuinely the case.
So you've not arranged anything at all through the chat?
Nope.
So how have you arranged anything with said person?
The only thing I've arranged separately is literal travel arrangements. That is it. So there's not been any other kind of talk about what we might do when we get there. No kind of preamble about, wouldn't it be fun if we did X, Y, and Z? Actually, no.
But equally, I also know that you don't really do that level of conversation anyway. So
that's more luck than judgment. Okay.
Yeah. So
genuinely, that is probably my way. Yes, I'm not a big one for chats anyway. Now I think about it. However, I actually, because you know the person as well, and we have played together. Yeah. As a group, it actually feels quite inclusive and fun to actually include you to a degree in some of those things, because you're doing me the courtesy of letting me go and do this. So for me, I actually don't feel like I want some clandestine separate relationship chat about it, because
I upgraded quite significantly there.
But But I almost feel like you are included to a degree because you're allowing me the opportunity to do it. So I kind of don't want to hide anything from you. So you're very welcome in any conversation about what we might do. I actually hadn't considered it would be fun to have a separate chat about it. How weird. I've not really thought about it like that until you said it, but it's not occurred to me.
So for both of your for your solo dates, you have had separate chats, but I think the separate chats have much more been because you're friends with those people, rather than it being a thing. And
exactly
equally for the people that I've had dates with, I am also friends with them.
I know.
But I think what you don't like the idea that there might be some sexy chat going on. There really isn't. But I don't think you like the concept of that.
I think I find it harder to get my head around because it's purely because it's not in my sphere of reference at all. I can't see anything, so I don't know what's being talked about. So of course my mind is going to go to the obvious extreme and think, oh my God, they're probably organising some fucking ridiculous, like sex-fueled 4-hour marathon, and I don't know what they're talking about.
What is it with you in 4 hours?
What is it with you in 4 hours, Mr. H? Come on.
It's only 2 hours. It's
well, I think it's 4 overall, but you count the other 2 hours of a day. But
all right, okay,
fine.
Right. So
yes,
but the difficulty.
But you don't know.
You don't know, and they aren't sexy chats by the nature of the people that I'm in the chats with, and their preference isn't on particularly spicy chat.
Okay.
Which I think is fair, but I do think there will come a point when like there'll be someone that I go on a date with. Hopefully there'll be another one at some point.
Well, there is. We know there is.
Well, there is.
Next month.
But okay, someone that isn't
that person.
Those either one of the people that I've been on a solo date with, right? And they might want to have a bit of a spicy chat.
Really?
I'm just
I'm just thinking out loud. Go on. It's not an accusation.
But my take is you hate sexy chat to the point where, right, literally in the last 24 hours, someone said that they had a spicy evening, and I was like, what do you mean? And they were literally afraid to tell us what they'd been doing because they know that you don't like spicy chat.
Now, this went entirely over my head. I remembered the comment, I remember the chat, and I remember this conversation. I had no idea at all that this was aimed at me and my less than wonderful love of sex chats.
How can you not?
I just assumed it was banter.
Okay.
I don't even know.
Okay. Not that I thought for one moment they were going to be elaborating on what they were up to in lurid, sexy detail or whatever. Lurid and sexy being obviously great bedfellows there. But the point is that people will generally avoid any spicy talk whatsoever in our chats because they know, yes, they do, 1000%, because they know you hate it.
I mean, I could just read it and move on. I don't need to involve myself.
You can't because...
I can.
No. You and the thing is, even when chats have got slightly mildly warm, and we're not talking, this is like, less than a British summer day, you'll often go, oh, get a room, you two, or you'll do eye rolling, like emojis, or we can almost hear you reading the chats and going, oh. So I think there is something about it that we probably need to resolve. But I don't know what that resolution is. Now, I'm not suggesting that I, for one, am in any way jumping on all my chats and going, hey, this is really filthy.
Let's
and really
take this offline.
Yeah, that's not what I'm proposing. But what I am saying is that I enjoy that and other people enjoy that. And it's how do we navigate that, particularly if you're going on a date with somebody. Now, we've mentioned this before, and that the challenge is that I want to be keen for my date. Like I want to look forward to it, and I want to be excited about it. I cannot be more excited about that date than I can be about sitting down and watching Netflix with you.
No,
I know. So, and that's
Are you more excited?
Sorry?
Even if you don't say it in a chat.
Am I more excited about going on a sexy date with someone than sitting down and watching Netflix with you?
You don't have to mention Netflix. Any comparable night with me.
Okay. I'm not more excited.
Right.
But I want to be excited about the date.
Okay.
So I can't even display an equal amount of excitement because at that point, the Mrs. H, eye rolling occurs and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Oh. And even when I have told you about, for example, sexy times, you're very dismissive of that because you're like, oh, I bet she gave you head and I bet she sat on you and fucked you. And that's your presumptuousness of how a date might go. So there is, I know what I'm dealing
One
with.
and done.
Yeah. I know what the way you see it. But for me, I like having a bit of a flirt. I like having a bit of spicy conversation. It doesn't need to be graphic, but at the same point, I recognize that you don't want me to have that in conversations with people by myself. The challenge is that no one fucking wants to do it when you're in the chat.
Can you just like boot me out of a chat for 10 minutes and enter me back in again?
No.
Like, what's happening?
No, I'm not doing that.
Oh, while Mrs. H appeared. Give me an example of a potential text you might send to a solo date person. Give me, I don't know, spice level 3.
Spice level? What, out of what? 100?
No, all right. Talk about Nando's spice level. 5 being extreme, 1 being baby spice. Give me a medium peri-peri.
I have no idea what that might look like.
Mildly spicy.
But no, I'm not.
Go on. give me a potential. All right, like you've got a hot date this weekend. I don't know, Saturday. Let's just make it up.
All right. So what
and
level?
You're looking forward to the date. You don't want to piss me off.
Yeah.
But also, you would like to have a separate message with this person.
But I don't want to. So if I don't want to piss you off, I don't send that message. That's the problem.
All right. Supposing I said, fine, message this person.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of level of graphic are we talking that you would like to send?
This is a challenge because okay. How no different? I was going to say no different to the sexy
like,
text.
Hey, sugar tits, we're meeting on Saturday. Off you go. What do you want to say?
Hey, sugar tits.
Yeah.
We're meeting on Saturday. Yeah. I don't know. This is a very weird conversation.
I know.
You're grinning like a maniac.
Me on the spot all the time and tell you
okay.
Real office extortion menu of graphic things I want to do to my sexy date. So
I can't wait to take your clothes off and go down on you, or have the taste of you in my mouth.
Gosh, that's graphic.
What?
Would you say that?
Yeah,
to
I
somebody?
would say that to someone.
Would you actually?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's actually quite high on the peri.
What you can't see, gentle listener, is Mrs. H is actually waving her hand around like it's a fan and wafting her t-shirt around because that is such a spicy.
I mean, it's not Fanta level of Nando's.
Well, no, because no one wants Fanta level.
Obscene.
So
all right.
What's okay? So
why is it the fact you've had to say, I don't know, the taste of you? Like, why?
I don't. You asked me for an example.
I know.
Why you?
That's something that would occur to you to say that.
That would be
Do you
like
think the
that
recipient would be.
That is a message I have sent you before.
Have you?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Because I'm not a fucking idiot, and I wasn't going to say something.
25 years together.
Yes, I know. But that's
all right.
But that would be like, why are you still wafting your?
Because that's actually quite spicy. Oh my god! All right, fine. So you would potentially, and it is just potential, theoretical, what you might say to somebody.
Yes, that's all I've got. That's my only go-to.
And it's only going to escalate from there, isn't it?
Because that's the idea. Yes.
You're going to get something back to be like, I don't know, like, oh my god, I can't wait to put your cock in my mouth.
There we go. See, there we go. See,
god. Sexting you now.
Yeah.
Live.
And what are you going to do with my cocks in your mouth?
Oh my god, no, I can't do it. I would be really, really bad at this. Well, anyway, let's leave that one there because I don't know if I can answer that.
See, I want you kneeling before me with my cock in your mouth, and I want your eyes to be on mine whilst you're sucking my cock.
Oh my god, you're quite good at this. I don't think I'm very good at this. I can do it in reality.
In reality?
Yeah.
How
I'm just not very good at saying the words.
You can suck. Are you saying you can suck the cock in reality, but you can't talk about the cock sucking?
Spot on.
Okay.
Can't do that.
No, don't be spotting off.
I don't know why, but it just feels
like there's something in the back of your throat.
Oh my god! It just feels like an unnecessary escalation of vocalization that I just don't have in me. But I'm fine with the cock being in me.
So not even like I can't wait to get through that door and then push you up against the wall and kiss you.
No.
Not even that.
No, because
and run my hands up and down
the
you.
fact that I'm going on a freaking date with them should tell them I'm looking forward to that.
I'm going on a date with you, bitch. Be grateful.
I mean, it's like ego boosting. I can't do it. Like, I can't take a compliment. You know this. So for me, it's my worst cringe factor. Having someone say something to me like this will mean I'll have to accept said graphic cock laden commentary and then come back with something equally fucking like nasty and sexy. And I can't do it.
What about sexy pictures though?
I can get behind that a bit more because it it's not created for you. It's just a picture. I don't really need a cock shot though. Again, it's not massively important to me. How does anyone ever like decide they want to play with me ever?
Well, I'm a very good front man. Very, very good front man.
Do you just send everyone like text in advance and going, hey, this is what she's going to do? She just won't tell you.
Yeah, this is it. The eye rolling is just a natural phenomenon.
Turns out Mr. H has 82 separate chats.
Probably know me. But I think that's one of the things that we kind of need to discuss as a rule.
That is definitely an area that needs some understanding. I don't think I'll ever be on the same page as you, but also you won't be on the same page as me. But we have to find a compromise.
There we go. See,
I do understand.
Yes.
I don't know what the compromise is.
No, but
a burner phone. That's what.
A burner phone. So, and
then we can both sit there and read each other's and go, "Oh my god, that's horrible. Let's burn it and never speak of it again."
Yeah, but I don't think you would send messages like that.
Not because I'm a prude or anything. I just don't. It makes me cringe. Like I inwardly think, no, it's giving me the ick. I don't need it.
But would it give you the ick if someone sent you that sort of message? For example, if I sent you that,
I like mildly kind of, foreshadowing stuff.
Your level of like is, I'm totally going to do a sex on you tonight.
I mean, sometimes maybe that's a bit too humorous. So
yes.
Maybe something a bit more. I don't know. I'll work on it.
It's anal night tonight.
Oh my God.
The perfect text. Right. Okay. Any more things about rules that we need to cover as we've gone off topic, delightfully talking about going down on people and blowjobs and all sorts of wonderful things?
And no, I think we've adequately explored all of the rule stuff.
We've covered rules.
We have covered
We've nailed
rules. It. Yeah, definitely.
So what I will say in terms of having that conversation about rules, probably not the best thing to try and resolve it on a podcast when we've only got a limited time. We probably need to mull it over and take it away. Yeah. As we've said, is a good idea. Think about it, work it out, and then come back with some ideas and suggestions. That's probably not what we're going to do. We're probably just going to get drunk and do whatever the fuck we like, because that's how we roll. Probably. I can't back any of that up. Maybe. So it also helps if you write your rules down your arm. So if you're in a club someone approaches you, you can go, right, this is what I can do and this is what I can't do. Don't break any of these
Fairly
rules.
redundant if you go in a hot tub though, because then it will come off.
Get it tattooed. Simple.
Get it tattooed.
It's so fine. Yeah, it's so easy.
Do you remember we knew someone once who had like a shopping list?
Yes, they had the shopping list. It was just like, it said shopping and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or whatever.
And he just
write it down what he... Yeah, and then on the other arm, I think he had like a memo or something. It was just like things to remember. So I think there are ways to tackle those things. I think rules are really, really important, particularly for someone who, like myself, who needs that to visualize what's going to happen. What can you expect? What might go through the evening, and what might you see your partner doing? I think it also helps to protect your relationship. But I know that some people just love pure anarchy and they don't really care about the rules. What I would say is if you're one of those people, it's really important to respect that other people will have rules and boundaries and to really have those conversations before you engage with them. Is that fair?
Yeah. Absolutely good shout.
In today's lesson, Simon learned that sharing is really important, but having rules in place is a key thing.
Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking more like the end of He-Man.
Yeah.
And G.I. Joe and knowing is half the battle.
Moral
that kind of
lessons
stuff.
there. Okay.
Yeah. So, what else you got? Nothing?
Oh, no. I mean, we've talked for an hour now, so I think people have had enough of this.
Oh, good. Nice summary. So if you've had enough of this, thanks for sticking with us. Don't forget to send us any thoughts, theories,
please.
comments
I'm really
on Open House.
To hear about. Actually, I'm interested to hear from our listeners to see if, there have been situations where a rule or boundary has been broken or crossed and what you did, how it kind of all panned out, what approach you took. Quite interesting to hear different people's perspectives on how they do that.
Perfect. Right. Mrs. H, do your thing.
Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.
So have you got a joke this time?
Oh.
Why don't you have a joke?
I didn't prepare one.
You didn't prepare one?
No. My life's a joke at the moment. It's not good enough.
Oh, bless you. So let's give people an update. What have we been up to? We went to a fake festival recently.
Oh my God, it was fucking epic.
It was good, wasn't it?
It was banging. I
so
loved it.
We saw
fake Queen.
Fake Bowie.
Fake Bowie.
Fake Green Day.
Fake Killers. Fake Pink.
You know what?
Pink.
We didn't see fake Pink.
Well, we heard her.
We heard her
Heard
from
her
a
from the
distance.
pub.
We were late because we
Yeah.
went to the pub instead. And I thought Killers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only that Mr. Brightside song. And
But Green Day and Queen were
Very good.
tremendous.
Very good.
Tremendous.
Bowie was pretty good too.
Yeah. So we did that. That was excellent stuff.
What else have we been up to?
We've been very social.
Yeah, we went to a social.
We've been very, very social bunnies. We've been all over the place, going to different socials and just hanging out with nice people and meeting new people and having some play dates with new people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got solo dates coming up.
We do.
Yeah.
Time to refine that good solo chat I've got going.
But I noticed that you're also away another date further on. So maybe I should get another date in then.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm free for all.
Oh, free for all. Can you imagine a free for all? I post that out there and no one would fucking turn up and it would be the loneliest wank I'd ever had.
True.
It's true.
Are all wanks lonely by their very definition?
No, because the dog watches anyway.
Oh my God.
Yeah.